Speak the truth. With Carl West.
Speak the truth.
With Carl West.
Speak the truth. Speak the truth. Speak the truth.
Yeah, Carl West.
Tell everybody.
Speak the truth, baby.
Ooh.
It's a podcast for truth. Are your ears ready? For Carl West. Are your ears ready? Speak the truth. Let's go, King Farley with Carl West. Yeah, he is. Your ears. Carl West. Carl West.
Hey.
Carl West. Carl West.
Yeah.
Carl West. Carl West. Carl West. Carl West. Carl West.
Yo, what's up? It's Carl West back at you for another Speak the Truth with Carl West. That's right. I'm here again trying to make this thing just an incredible place to come for relevant and real content. Relevant and real content is very important to me. I spent my whole adult life in the media business. I created a digital media company. I had a publishing company, and I've done a host of things in the media space. And so this podcast is kind of like the final version of what I would call my media mini empire in a sense. But I expect this to be the grand finale in terms of how I take this platform and build it into something that I hope would be incredible and profitable and also meaningful to me and impactful. So anyway, enough said with that. I need you to subscribe. Get this content directly in your inbox or anywhere else you get podcasts. But I need you to subscribe in order for you to get it. Now, I think I started off. This is going to be this is second part of what I think is maybe a 5-part series that I created. It's actually going to be in multiple forms. It's going to be in video form. It's going to be in the written form within the pages of my digital media platforms. And it's also going to be in this podcast form. And it's called the West Side Stories. I actually got a foundation to give me some funding to produce this series. I think it's two topics, 2 programs. And the first one, of course, I just stated was West Side Stories, the greatest stories never told. And it's about folks who make it out of the concrete jungles to go on to be successful in their own life. What are the commonalities? But what are the instruments that will help a person that came out of poverty, they came out of deep poverty, they came out of projects, they came out of communities where the odds of them making out was very, very unlikely. And individuals, there's so many of them. I know them, and I'm going to interview so many of them as this series just go on and on and on. It's going to be like a special, like a series that you watch on your streaming networks, man. And we're going to just talk about, again, how do you make it out of how do you escape the concrete jungles? I've been working on this for a while, and I'm excited. And so this is the second of the series of the West Side Stories, and it's called Carl West, because I started off talking about my journey and how I made it or escaped out of the concrete jungles. And so I'm going to do it like a series. If you watch series on streaming, they take you through the timeline going up, and then at some point they go back to your earlier days to show how it connects to the present. And then, of course, you want to go on to what it looks like down the road. But I talked about an early part of my life. Now I want to start at where I was working at the Chicago Board of Trade, which is the place that really gave me this life. That was such a transformational moment in my life. A kid coming from the urban concrete jungles in Chatham, Illinois, Chatham, Chicago, and to stumble across, because that's what I did. I stumbled across the Board of Trade. Had 10 resumes and cover letters that I was downtown given to companies that I'd already targeted. And one of the companies out of the 10 said, we are not accepting resumes anymore. So I was just walking downtown. I probably was about 22, 23, and I was just walking downtown again after I passed out the resumes, the 9, and I had that one left, and I came across this building where I saw people going through these revolving doors with these different color little jackets on with initials on they chest with they was badges, and I was curious, so I went in there. And I looked around and I saw a dude who was the security guard and said, "What is this?" And he said, "I can define it better if you go up on the observation floor and look and see." And I did that, and I still had no clue what the heck was going on as I watched this fast-paced environment of people passing paper, tossing paper, screaming, doing hand gestures, and I was like, "What the heck?" So I came back, asked the dude again, and he tried to give me a mental explanation because, of course, he was working there doing security, and he couldn't really go off into that and chat with me as much because it's just a fast pace within the hallways. People are just always this and that and this and that, and so I'm sure his job was to pay attention to what was going on and not be that engaged with me. So I asked him where the human resource the employment officer told me downstairs. I went down there because I had that one resume and cover letter. So of course I threw the cover letter away because it wasn't for them, and I gave them a resume. I filled the application out, and this was right after the stock market crash in '89. Yep, we had that big crash in '89, and folks in the Board of Trade, for instance, because I was hearing about this after I came back, folks was jumping off the walls, man, off the buildings, man. People was killing themselves. They lost all their wealth. It was just crazy, and I found that out once I got, because what happened was, out of all the 9 people that I gave my resume cover letters to, nobody called me. Nobody called me. And except the Board of Trade with that last one that I had, that 10th one I had, they called me 2 weeks later and hired me to come in. And so that's how I learned about what was going on in terms of the stock market had just crashed and they lost a lot of people. It was just chaotic. I'm sure the people on the outside or either the people on the inside will know what I mean by how chaotic it was, because I don't think the general population knew what this thing even was, because I didn't as a 22 or 23-year-old kid going there. But again, it was transformational for me when I got that job. It gave me everything I needed to be who I am today in terms of my insight into the world and being a very practical and logical person like I've always been, but I became even more practical and logical as I learned that place. And I became astute in investing in stocks. I made some money, but I bought all penny stocks, and that's what they told me to do. The traders was like, "Dude, you ain't got no money, so you can't invest in this high level atmosphere, so you have to do penny stocks." And I remember when I invested in the penny stocks, I think I told this in the last series, that I invested in Viagra and I bought it like $1.10 when it first came on the market, behind closed doors before it hit the market. I bought it because the Board of Trade has access to this information prior to it going public, and so I bought me 1,000 shares, and because I made nice money at the Board of Trade, 23-year-old boy, made money. I got my first apartment on Lakeshore Drive, 7337 South Lakeshore Drive, apartment 312. I'll never forget it. I go by there time to time now just to sit back and reminisce about where I came from and how this place, that place kind of, that apartment, my very first apartment, just kind of brought me to where, I had some security, I was safe, and I was, and I was a young man enjoying the fruits of this little labor that I put together as I worked at the Board of Trade. Bought me a little car, I had me a little Audi and stuff, and I never forget, it was just a good time for me at that time. But anyway, as time went on, it just I was enthralled with the place, but I got knowledge, I got information. Being at the Board of Trade was like having a PhD when I got done in my 6 years of working there because of what I learned. I got an honorary PhD. And I don't know what to even title it in life. It was an honorary PhD in life. All right, life in this corporate environment, fast-paced corporate environment, I guess, and I built some relationships and I learned some incredible lessons there about white people, because it was probably 90% white people that was there, and and they saw me as in a mind. I remember, forget it, dude said, "Man, you different. You ain't like some of the other black people, man. You look us in our eyes and you don't shy away, and you very vocal about who you are and what you do." And because I remember when I smacked this white boy in his mouth for touching me in an inappropriate way, not a sexual inappropriate way, but I was talking. His girlfriend used to always come to my desk and hang out and wait for him, but she would talk to me, and he was a cool dude, on the surface. But this one particular day, maybe he had a bad day, and he explained it to me later. He had a bad day on the trading floor, and he took it out on, he came and screamed at her like, "Why you always talking to this nigga?" And that's what he said. And I didn't really care about that word. I'm not that type of dude. I don't get off into that, man. Again, being practical, those words don't bother me as long as you don't put your hands on me and try to stop my progress in life. So I never really cared about the word, but when he poked me when he said it, that's what did it. And we was in the middle of the hallway, next to where I worked at, and I just I punched him and knocked him down, and and everybody was like, "Oh, whoa, whoa," there's a lot of people in the hallway, and again, mostly all white. And I never forget, that was towards the end of the day, because he came off the trading floor and got ready to go. And so the next day I came home, and my supervisor wasn't around. She leaves early typically, and I came back expecting to get fired. And my supervisor never said anything to me. And I was like, "Oh," she was like, "Oh, Carl, hey, blah, blah, blah," just a regular everyday greeting. And, "Hey, it's time to work and do what you got to do the best you can do, whatever." And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Nobody said anything about it. So I just kind of rolled with it. Some days went by, and that white boy came back and saw me and hollered at me, and he invited me for lunch. About 5 straight days, and for 5 straight days I turned him down because I wasn't sure what it was all about. Being that I know the game. I'm growing up in urban America. I know what's up, so I didn't go. And then finally he was like, I want to talk to you. You should come and go to lunch with me. And I finally did. And the white dude was like, "Look, man, I respect you. I appreciate you. I'm sorry for what I did. I was bad." He told me he had a bad day on the office, on the trading floor. But anyway, and he said, "Hey, he said, a man is supposed to stand up and defend himself, and you did that, and I have respect for you." And and then ever since, me and him we became buddies in terms of associates. He took me on vacation with him. He took me into his Lincoln Park home. I hung out with his boys and his friends, and I was amazed at how, coming from where I'm coming from, and I've never been around white folks all my life because I didn't go away to school. So I didn't have a chance to see what that life was like. This is the first time I was ever around white people at that magnitude outside of, because I was going to school that night. At the time, I was going to Robert Morris at the time. And so the brother, and so again, I had a chance to just be exposed to some things again that were eye-opening, and I realized that these white boys, it was the first my aha moment when I realized, because I grew up thinking that maybe white folks was special. They had something that I didn't have, that we didn't have as black people, and I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe they had angel wings, because everything was about white, and then what was bad was black. So I can't remember all the things that was going through my mind that took me there, but that's what I thought. But then I realized, by being there at the Board of Trade over those years and then hanging out with him, I realized he was doing the same thing that cats in the hood was doing, right? Smoking weed, doing other little drugs, recreational stuff, and they was chasing up behind women. They just had access to money that allowed them to do it in a different way. Women was around them for the money. And so I saw this. They had, and they did it big, right? He got his Lincoln Park home, and he had a tray in the room that was full with weed, and papers and had bottles and on ice and champagne. Another room was a tray with cocaine, and they was having a good time. And most of them was married, but they had, the little side girl coming in and entertaining us because the wives wasn't there. This was probably one of their little trick-off little homes that they had up in Lincoln Park. And I'm just amazed, but I'm just also taking it all in. But anyway, that was an aha moment for me. It taught me that I was equal. I was equal to a white boy at any level. The only thing he had over me was money, access, and opportunities. And so I set out to create that for myself. Then if that's what separates us, I need to create something for me that was giving me money, access, and opportunities. Hence what took me on my entrepreneurial spirit, which I always had. And the series will take you back to where I had that at later on, but right now I'm going to stay on this part. And so eventually, I had a white guy that always told me, an older white man named William, never forget William, he had a WLM initials on his badge. He used to come by and talk to me and chat with me, and he used to always say to me every now and then, periodically, he was like, Carl, you're a pretty smart guy. You should really do your own thing, because the only way you're gonna make some real money is to go out and do your own thing, because you would never make none here at the Board of Trade. You just ain't a part of what this is. And he was just being honest, and I didn't take it bad. Again, being a prophetic thought leader and being practical, I heard what he was saying. He's like, look, my granddaddy worked here, my father worked here, I'm third or fourth generation working here. It's just how it goes. And in order for you to be a trader, somebody got to sponsor you and put money up on you. And I don't see anybody doing that for you. I don't think nobody going to do that for you, because they got their own family and friends that they would do it for before they do it for you. So, but you're a smart guy. You should go out and do your own business. And I had already had that in my mind, because I've been, again, when the series will take you back to where I've always been a business-minded person from the days when I had a paper route and when I was, 11, 12 years old. So it goes back to that. It was my paper route. I went and got the papers, and I, whatever I did, and I went to the stores for my neighbors to get their milk and their bread and their papers every day, and I shoveled their snow and raked their leaves, and I mowed their lawn all up and down my block. I had 10 or 12 customers every time it rained and leaves came down and it snowed. I was going up and down the block doing that. So I was already entrepreneurial back at 11, 12 years old. And so that was already on my mind. But he kept telling me that. And eventually I did. Left that place, saved up money, had stock, but didn't plan it right, because I ain't know anything about the planning process of running the business. I wanted to be like John Johnson and have a magazine. I wanted to be like Mr. William Garth and own a newspaper and things of that nature. People who impressed me in that marketplace. And so anyway, I set out, and it was not a good look. For the first, that first year since I quit, after I quit, my money ran out because I was paying rent over there in Cotton Oak, and money I had saved up was just going. I was just burning cash, but nothing was coming in, as I was realizing I was pursuing this business how to be in business. I had to learn how to be in business. I had to learn the objectives of what being in business as a publisher meant and all that stuff. So I spent years learning that, but in the interim, I ended up had to give up my apartment because I couldn't afford the rent. And so I gave up my apartment. I moved in on one of my friend's couch, and he stayed there for about 4 or 5 months, and his girlfriend got pregnant, and he was like, Carl, she's moving in with me, you got to go. Then I moved to another friend's couch. By that time, I had to sell my car, but I forgot that when I first left the apartment, I gave rid of all my furniture. Back then, you're a single man, all the furniture is black. Everything is black, right? So I gave it away like I don't want it. I had time to try to sell it. I got to get out of here. Because I probably was behind in the rent over a few months, trying to hang on, thinking that something would change and I would be able to hang on, but it didn't happen. So anyway, so that's what I did. I bounced around the couches, man, 3 or 4 friends, man, for over a year or two, man, and didn't have a car, and I hadn't produced a magazine yet. And it was just a hard time. So then we will speed up to where I produced my first magazine, going around selling ads to local businesses on the prospect of, right? I didn't even have a magazine. I had a mock-up that I built, that I created stapled it together with the cover and all that, and And I was able to go and sell it to some local businessmen. They believed in me, and they gave me $100 here, $200 here, $4 here, and I was able to save up enough. But it took me about 6 months to do it, to save it up. And again, I'm still bouncing around from couch to couch. It took me all that time to produce the first magazine. And I remember when I did it, I came back to those stores and was like, "Hey man, I got your magazine." They was like, "Carl, what? That was oh, they was like, that was a year ago." I'm like, "No, just 6 months." They was like, "Well, we paid you." But you know what was cool? They respected me because I showed back up. I didn't just vanish. And so because of that, I think maybe 6 or 7 local businesses that I got to give me money for a magazine. The bulk of them said, "Well, you gonna print the magazine again?" I was like, "Yes." And they said, "Well, we'll give you some more money. We want our ad in there again." And so that was like the start of Carl West, in terms of understanding to do what you're supposed to do. Take care of your business no matter what happens, and then be responsible. And I was able to look those men in the faces. I think there was a few ladies who had business. I looked them in them faces, and I had that magazine. I told them, "Hey man, this is the best that I could do." And they respected the fact that I came back. I didn't disappear completely with their money. I came back, and I came back with a nice look. I mean, it wasn't the best looking magazine. It was early stages, whatever. But I came back, and the ad was in there, and they appreciated that, right? And so that just took me on the journey. So look, when we come back on the next series, man, the next part of this series, the third part of this series, I'll talk about what happened when I got that first magazine, and then all the things I had to deal with. I mean, I kept moving around to different places, just trying to find some stability. I just keep a roof over my head as I tried to push this magazine to the folks in Chicago, man, downtown, south side, wherever. I just wanted to get it in people's hands. I mainly hung around the Cotton Club because that was real big at the time when Bernie Mac was hosting comedy over there. And so that was a good place for me to hang around as I passed the magazines out. And that's what kind of ignited some exposure and ignited something. But anyway, that's, continue this on the next part of this series. Anyway, I'm Carl West, and Speak the Truth. Holla back.
Beautiful day, let the children play. They ain't feeling no pain. It's a beautiful day. Wake up in the morning, it's a wonderful feeling. It's good to be living, feel it all in my